5G network.
Welcome back, everyone, to Hearthstone Grandmasters. Hope you enjoyed the little halftime show featuring two of our favorite jesters in Hearthstone Esports as we get ready for our next series, Firebat versus Empanizado. And Empanizado and Firebat both are in Division B, as Firebat came pretty close to Division A, but looks like he lost out a few tiebreakers and also was not able to advance past the top four that he had qualified for reasons that I'm sure most people know by now. Firebat is bringing the Mage, Rogue, Druid, and his Priest was banned away by Empanizado. And then from Empanizado's perspective, he's got the Mage, Demon Hunter, Warrior, and his Priest was banned. So both of these men are being gentlemen here with a friendly Priest ban on both sides and saying, you know what, let's duel with no Priest available. I can get behind that, TJ.
Yeah, I can get behind that as well. I think that's Empanizado's game plan going in, especially given the fact that, I mean, his Warrior deck, our Team Mumble deck spot of the day, is just something spicy. But I feel like it would just get crushed by Priest.
Yes, it does, TJ. I was 0-3 versus every Priest on ladder when I played with this deck. And I said, how does this deck ever beat Priest? I'm like, oh, it bans it. But another class I lost to a lot was Mage. So I was like, well, you can't ban Priest and Mage. Guess Mage is just going to get a win this series if it goes up against the Control Warrior. We'll see.
Yeah.
There's clearly a game plan with Empanizado, who looks like he's just in the other room from Firebat, if I were to be analytical about their webcams. It kind of has like the same aesthetic, except I guess he has a darker door versus Firebat has white doors. Firebat recently moved, I believe, to Las Vegas, as I believe he's now like hanging out with Zalay and chilling on the West Coast, no longer in Michigan where he is, was born and raised, and happy to welcome him over to Pacific Coast.
Yeah, and Vegas, very hot, especially this time of year. I would say that it is one of the hottest places to live, but actually I just looked it up, and where I currently reside is exactly the same temperature as Las Vegas current temperature, so maybe I'm the sucker.
I mean, you and Firebat both are in 100-plus degree temperatures for the weekend.
There's 111 currently in Las Vegas and 111 currently where I live.
Wow.
It's very hot.
Equally testing working conditions. Yeah. Well, good luck to everybody who's out there, as well as anybody that's affected by any kind of weather conditions out there. Firebat's going to start off with the lab partner against Empanizado's lab partner. But, going first in this matchup sometimes is it's not exactly as great as you would like it to be, because having the coin feels pretty impactful in Mage versus Mage.
Yeah. In most decks, I would say. Against most decks as the Temple Mage, you'd like to have the coin. It's an extra spell for Mana Cyclone, lets you do your power turns one turn sooner, discounts the Mana Giant because it's not a card that started in your deck. Just so many options, and even just judging by Firebat's hand right now, I like his hand so much better than Empanizado, and I just double confirmed these players are playing card for card the exact same Temple Mage list. 30 for 30. This is a true mirror matchup. The
Fair
truth.
Enough. I would watch that documentary. Empanizado finds another cram session. I do find that amassing resources in this mirror is pretty important, because sometimes it turns into like who just has more stuff to play, and who can get it out more quickly and more efficiently onto the board. However, we will see that Firebat has kind of the holy trinity of the early game, which is the Chenvala, the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and the Mana Cyclone. These are really powerful ways to generate resources for very cheap.
Yeah.
And he can go next turn if he wants to say Chenvala and then Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then he can play stuff to generate cards with Mana Cyclone. So things are looking pretty good here for Firebat.
Yeah, he can afford to play this slow. It's kind of on Empanizado now to
You fight me, you get
start a big
burned.
train development, but can't keep going with tempo. Learn Draconic. We'll get him a big burst of stuff. He also has Janus Brav, which on the play is like the best, one of the best turn weapons in the game.
Or is it just me?
Just in terms of raw stats. So he's not struggling, but he might be struggling after this turn.
Yeah, this is tough. Sorcerer's Apprentice and Chinval, those are two cards that you want to kill. Two minions that are big threats.
But if he doesn't pick up,
Evocation.
yeah, so he does hit Learn Draconic. Okay, he played it so fast, it looked like he only hit one 0 mana spell. If he had only hit one, that actually might not have been the best turn because he strained his Mana Cyclone. He would have only got 1/5/5. But he's able to get 2 5/5s. Mana Cyclone's still stranded, but he has Janus Brav in hand. So now in Empanizado, it's his turn to try and react. He has an evocation himself, but unfortunately doesn't have any follow-up to this outside of the evocation. So it's going to have to come up big, though he will have a good amount of resources to work with.
And now Empanizado can strike back. Ray of Frost. So you want to throw out his evocation as well. I've seen some people just do that because it helps supercharge their mana giant. Whoa! Wow, and he even has the lab partner to make Arcane Explosion even better.
Wow. Wow, okay.
Jeez.
And Arcane Breath deals 3? You play an elemental ally, sure. I mean, no elementals in hand, but
That was cool.
fine. Yeah.
He didn't full clear, though, which still gives Firebat the ability to kill off the Sorcerer's Apprentice and then play the Jandas Barov. Also can go for a Conjurer's Calling to maximize his... Well, I guess it's not even super good if he plays Conjurer's Calling here. I think it's just a Jandas trade.
Yeah. If he plays Conjurer's Calling, he leaves up Sorcerer Apprentice, which seems dangerous.
Wow, imagine he has a Dragon Hand Corner Breaker. Would be kind of nutty. But alas, he is not playing the Cobalt Spellkin variant that some people have adopted. The Cobalt Spellkin and the Arcane Breath variant has kind of come into the meta right now, which is a pretty interesting package that you can put together to try and squeeze out more tempo and more value, and also just give you a bunch more ammo, right? Because part of the issue when you play the non-dragon version, it's exactly the situation that both players find themselves in, which is sometimes they're running a little bit dry. And part of what makes the mage deck so scary is the constant fuel that they have. Oh, wow.
Evocation.
I mean, Evocation looks to be one of the best cards just solely based off the value that he can get. He only has 4 mana. I mean, he can Fireball the Raz, which seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he can get super greedy if he wants to and play like Incanter's Flow and Tome of Intellect. But I mean, he's just getting muscled out of the game, I feel, if that's the case. He's getting some progress on the Learn Draconic, but Empanizado also has his own. Not really much to do alongside it, though. Own Jandas Brav. Reasonable stats. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Ooh, Mind Games. Ends up choosing the better statted minion, hoping Firebat will ping the 4/4 instead and find out that it was actually the 4/5.
This is going to be the 4th evocation also cast this game. Combustion just, you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, Combustion plays around Empanizado's fun mind game that he set up because it will splash both minions and kill it.
Yep.
But it does give him information. Because then he says, oh, Empanizado's the kind of player that will try to go above, galactic brain this stuff. The other option would be to charge his Mana Cyclone, and it looks like that's what he's thinking about with that Ray of Frost pick. You can freeze both of the 5 drops.
Oh, he wants to go
What
for
about that?
Conjur's Calling this turn. On his,
yes.
Learn Draconic.
Ah, that's smart too. I like that. Well, he does lose out on the ability to play Mana Cyclone. I think that's more important.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Finds a lot of actually some pretty decent stuff here. But now Empanizado gets to maybe cash in on a Conjur's Calling.
Right. Maybe double Conjur's Calling is good, because you can actually even use it on the minion that you targeted.
Yeah.
Evocation right away.
All right.
Fireball, Devolving Missiles, Brain Freeze. It's all good stuff. I think I don't really want to use Fireball simply because it's really expensive relative to everything else. It feels like you can like Devolving Missiles and most likely use Brain Freeze to clean everything up. Ray of Frost. Oh, jeez. Yeah, this works too.
Time runs out on me.
Wow.
Now you trade and finish with
Okay.
Conjur's Calling?
Maybe you Devolving Missiles and Spellbender.
I guess. Just make full value of this. You still get the 6/6. All right.
Oh, interesting. He trades to Jandis.
I mean, these plays
really
look, these
interesting.
plays look great. Like at the end of the turn, both players' plays look great. But I feel like I've just disagreed with them. I would have done something different and probably achieved like a similar result. It's kind of interesting, like the forks of the different plays that you could have made with both these Temple Mage hands.
Yeah, although it's a little bit more like a squiggle, TJ, than a fork. It feels like we all kind of take like a roller coaster, but we all land in the same spot. The loops and the upside down twists and turns. It's all based on preference, it feels like. But the general idea was Empanizado wanted to deal with the board, develop minions, and generate some resources, which he was able to do all 3 of.
I wonder.
Yeah.
Okay, so Firebat has a Pexus Blast.
Time runs out on me.
Still doesn't know, by the way, which 5-drop it is. Now Empanizado can draw cards, and he has another Mana Cyclone, and he finds his Astral Mansion, and he finds a Mana
And a
Giant.
Mana Giant. He has it all. And I think with all that, he has also found a win.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Crush your delusions of grandeur.
Oh boy, I don't know how Firebat gets out of this one.
Yeah.
He looks like he has to go shoot for the stars with Conjur's Calling and hope that he gets a Doomsayer on the other end.
Yeah.
First, of course, looking to see what he can find off of Font of Power. Finds
Zaki.
Zaki.
So you
Zaki
fish for
is
Doomsayer here.
strong.
You hit it, and then you follow it up next turn with a Mazaki. Win the game. All right. He's giving himself 2 chances. I've been casting for like a very long time. I've never seen Doomsayer from Conjur's Calling to save someone from a game. Never. Not a single time.
And
I
that will
understand it
continue.
exists. I see the play. I've never seen it.
It's all about probability, I guess. But yeah, surely after seeing it 100 times, you should at least see it 1 time, right?
Yeah, what
if
year
it's
is it?
not 0%.
2020? I've been casting Hearthstone since 2014 was my first Hearthstone cast.
Right.
But
But Conjur's Calling came out in 2019.
Yeah, but there's other things that players could have done, right? There was
Right, Pilot
Doomsayer
Shredder, for
outs
example.
before that. Piloted Shredder, yeah.
Which actually did happen a fair amount of time.
Yes, but it happened not in situations where someone's like, I need a desperation attempt to claw back in this game. I need to give them a random
Really?
2-drop and hope it's Doomsayer, and then I might have a chance to win. Never seen it.
TJ, not only do I think that's
Never
not
seen
true, I think you casted a game with me when we saw something like that. I'm like,
Show it
willing
to me.
I'm
Show
willing
it to
to
me.
try. I'm willing to put money on that, maybe even. That's interesting.
Show it to me.
I have to go back and dig the VODs up from like
All right.
the Goblins versus Gnome era, but like I'm pretty
Never seen
sure
it.
that is the case.
Nope, never seen it.
Not only that, I think that's not true. I think it's happened multiple times.
Nope, never happened. In fact,
well-
I don't think Doomsayer actually exists from Conjurer's Calling.
They just
You use
removed
it on an
it from the
opponent's
minion
minion.
pool. Got it.
It's not in the minion pool. If you use it on an opponent's minion, Doomsayer doesn't exist.
Interesting. So it's kind of like a curated minion pool, like how Dragon Queen Alexstrasza can't get Dragon Queen Alexstrasza.
Yeah, or how Exotic Mount Seller gets Bloated Python the least out of any of the 3-mana beasts.
I mean, that's just not true.
It is!
That's actually that's
H's
that's
Replay
not
tweeted you
true.
the proof yesterday. You thought it was the most. It's actually the least by 0.01%. The least seed 3-mana beast. By an entire 100.
That's just not true, though. That's just not true. I don't know how to explain that to you, TJ. Even if
All right, how about this? We'll call it a truce. I won't bring up Bloated Python. You don't bring up Doomsayer.
I don't
Forget
have to
about
bring it up because it speaks for itself.
Game number 2 here. Firebat Empanizado. Demon Hunter now for Empanizado. Interesting choice with the Demon Hunter. He does have some tech cards in here. He's got the tech. He's got a Mage Hunter. 3-mana 2/3 with Rush that silences. Whenever this attacks a minion, silence it. He's also got 1 Eye Beam, Spectral Sight, and double Acidic Swamp Ooze. Let me reiterate, Dan. Double Acidic Swamp Ooze. I feel like Empanizado made a bold meta call with that double Acidic
Yeah.
Swamp Ooze.
Oh yeah, he definitely did. Because if you look at his warrior deck, he also has Cobalt Sticky Finger in it.
Yeah.
He is very much hard targeting weapons in his opponent's decks. Primarily the fact that I think he was anticipating maybe more warrior or even demon hunter. I don't think you really put weapon removal to deal with demon hunter, but like it definitely helps a little bit. I too am very interested by his deck building decisions.
Well, I mean, it is not paying off in this matchup, but could pay off in his matchup against Frozen, which is later on in the week, who does have Warrior, Bomb Warrior. But that's it. Looks like he's hard targeting Bomb Warrior, which his decks don't really say it, but his techs do. I don't know. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it. I'm leaning more towards hard disagreeing with it than agreeing with it.
Interesting.
Dan, I disagree.
You're just-
Okay,
you're
I
just
was trying to
full
put it
of-
lightly, but I can't.
You're just full of edgy opinions today. I like it, TJ. Not believing Doomsayer's in the pool, thinking Python doesn't get summoned more often than others.
Not liking hard weapon removal tech. Yeah, you're right. All those things.
I grow.
Well, I'm
All right,
liking
get
the
on
way
this.
things are shaping up here. Empanizado has a very nice, clean snipe on this lab partner with Soul Shear, but Soul Shear is kind of important in case like Sorcerer's Apprentice come out and it's like hidden behind Mirror Entity
He has
or
the
Mirror
Shark
Image,
Shadow
excuse me.
though.
I grow.
So he's got the answer.
impatient.
Right.
And he does
like
want to
that.
get that skull over to the left as soon as he can. Just in case there's not a great target for Soul Shear until the point where he wants to cast Skull, which is actually coming up quickly with the coin. I like it. I'll take it.
Yeah, it looks
You
pretty
want-
solid as a development opportunity. Firebat finds Mirror Entity, Ice Spear, and Arcane Intellect. No cheap cards, but he could play as Arcane Intellect to also discount the Mana Giant this turn. I do wonder how valuable Ice Barrier is in this matchup. I've had opportunities to play it in the past, and I've really liked it every time I've picked it up. It felt like good when I like thought about it and said Ice Barrier reads your opponent's Mirror Slices does no damage, and I'm like, ends up being like pretty reasonable. The only problem is that, you know, what are you foregoing to get that, right? Like I had it off of an evocation, and I chose to spend that over like I almost had no other choice, right? Because there's expensive spells that I'm not going to play, and it was like Ice Barrier or bust. But in this case, Firebat actually had legitimate choices that could help either funnel towards his win condition or just to disrupt his opponents. And I do find that like an interesting dynamic specifically in this matchup because Mage doesn't have many ways to interact with that, but Ice Barrier is one of the ways you can life game.
Demons.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because we did just see Ice Barrier coming very handy for Muzzy when he was playing against Language Hack Sultan Hunter. Actually saved him. He would have died if he didn't have an Ice Barrier. And you know, Demon Hunter can run out of damage. Maybe not in totality, but they can run out of damage in their hand and buys much needed time to go find those sources. So it is quite interesting. Ooh, okay. Aldor True Seeker, one of the most valuable 5 drops, and Tundra Rhino, which maybe not the most valuable, but allows them to push a little bit of damage. So it's a full clear here, no matter what happens.
I
So
grow
you hit the 4/6 first.
Right.
All right.
Which makes sense.
Easy peasy. You even develop an acidic swamp ooze.
I like it. Get stuff in the way. Sometimes that can run into hand space issues too. If you like Skull Gul'dan, that gets another Skull Gul'dan and you draw more cards. So I also like kind of dumping the hand just a little bit here. Empanizado seems like his game plan is shaping up, but like, is it strong enough, right? Is he threatening the mage in a significant manner? And I would say the Swamp Ooze isn't doing exactly that right now.
I will crush your delusions of grandeur.
Oh, it says explode!
Does this sociologist have 3 or 5? He's put 1 Soul Jailer and a Soul Shear. Discarded 1 Soul Fragment with the Shardshatter Mystic. So I guess it has 1. Or 3, I mean.
What to do? What
Could
to
play that
do?
before the
Runs out on
scroll.
me.
Meanwhile, Firebat, it feels like the hands can get so clunky when we're talking about no Sorcerer's Apprentice Tempting Enchants. Feels like nothing really comes together super well.
Right. Sorcerer's Apprentice is not always needed, but when it's missing, you feel the pain pretty severely. It's kind of like it's like the mother of the deck, so to speak. You know, like just really gathers everybody together and makes them cooperate. Otherwise, there's so many differing plans. Like Evocation and Mana Cyclone sometimes are at odds with each other when you don't have Sorcerer's Apprentice, because it's like, well, I kind of want to generate spells, but if I play Evocation, my hand's full. Mana Cyclone can't really generate enough spells. It just becomes really awkward.
Demons. Demons.
Pretty interesting decision here from Empanizado, because I was actually thinking about this. I was thinking about the merits of just playing the Sociologist Militia. I think a lot of people would be thinking about the Skull Gul'dan and the Gladebender Depths, but this is a really powerful turn that's full board and threatening Firebat. And I think a lot of people think about Militia being a reactive card because they think about the rushers and how it can answer stuff, but what about just the crazy amount of stats it outputs for 7 mana if you have a couple
that's what I was
fragments in?
talking about last turn, and I was wrong. I miscounted. I thought there were 3, but there was 4 in the deck. That's after 1 Shardshatter Mystic discarded one of the
Right.
Soul Fragments. So,
Too
I
late.
mean, Flame Strike, but he's got to find time to stall if he decides to pick that Flame Strike. And right now, he doesn't have, again, not a fantastic way to capitalize on a Sorcerer Apprentice. No Mana Cycle, no Evocation, not even any freeze. Does have Mirror Image, but it's not that powerful when you consider. I mean, there's a bunch of things that can shoot through it already on the board. I mean, Arcane Inlight to dig for some rays, and like Ray of Frost, Mana Cyclone would be the two best pickups here. Ray of Frost. Okay, finds Ray of Frost.
It's huge. I think that makes him not dead. There's 15 on the board just as is. Actually, drawing that Soul Fragment's great, so Empanizado has less to worry about with the Skull of Gul'dan if you choose to go for it. Could also just play Marrow Slicer right now and trade onto the board just a little bit, so that way he has board space. Definitely needs to consider about like what's the better 2-turn lethal setup, which is Marrow Slicer and Gravebound Adept, or is it the Skull of Gul'dan while he has an opportunity to breathe?
If he plays Marrow Slicer, he's killing the Sorcerer Apprentice, so he's taking 9 damage there, and then he would push 10.
Warlock.
I mean, seems pretty good to me. But so does that. Holy moly. That's 14 damage from hand, guaranteed, even if he draws all of his Soul Fragments because he can Marrow Slicer first. And look at that. He puts him to 13, so he even has 1 extra. So Firebat very likely to clear here with Flame Strike. Oh, wait. Ah, no. I was like, oh, Raz! But
Not enough
he has
spell
1
damage.
and there's
Yeah.
a 5/5 on board, so looks like it'll have to be Flame Strike.
It does seem like it's Flame Strike, and it does seem like Empanizado's got the kill, unless Empanizado, of course, draw all of his Soul Fragments. No, he still has it with the Marrow Slicer. Okay,
Yeah, Marrow Slicer guarantees it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I guess that's it then, unless we're missing something here.
Can he find board freeze? Can he go for Conjurer's Calling again for the Doomsayer? Nah, you go.
This is guaranteed.
Yeah,
And
there it is.
He is also guaranteed dead.
Yep, he's dead.
Oh, jeez. I mean, you don't really bank around the fact that Lapidary gets discounted. At least both of them, but that's going to be death. And a big combo coming out. Firebat kind of chuckling. Because sometimes Demon Hunter just gets you.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty poor matchup, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why Soul Demon Hunter increased in popularity this week, is because a lot of players expected Tempo Mage, and it is one of the matchups that you're supposed to beat because they don't block damage well. They take a long time to get set up, and while they're getting set up, you're just hitting them. So it's a bad matchup, but yeah, that's a lot of... Firebat couldn't really piece together enough. He was like on the verge of something great. His mana giants were like 2 mana. He had Conjurer's Calling in hand. You know, he hits a couple more cheap spells that didn't start in his deck, and he's setting up a 2-turn lethal himself, but couldn't quite get there.
Yeah, well, it's a quick 2 games here for the series, and looks like Empanizado is just now down to his Warrior deck.
Oh, yeah.
T-Mobile deck Spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see, TJ, if it's able to do it.
What I'm talking about, Dan.
That's right. So it's not really a Control Warrior. It's not really a Tempo Enrage Warrior. It's not really... It's not really like the big Warrior with Rattlegore stuff, because you don't play Dimensional Ripper. It's just kind of like a hybrid Warrior that mashes a bunch of stuff. So I feel like it's just kind of a mid-range Warrior deck.
Should be called Gamer Warrior, Dan.
Video Game Warrior.
Video Game Warrior. That's sick. What a name. We've dubbed it. Actually, 1 sec, Dan. I'm going in right now, and I'm going to change it.
Please do.
Even though we probably won't see it again, I'm going to change it.
Oh, we see it tomorrow, don't we? Yeah, Empanizado plays Frozen tomorrow.
Oh, it says
Video game
explode.
Okay.
warrior. Oh. Can we rename mage to esports mage?
I can. All right. I changed the name. It is now Video Game Warrior.
Look, if they get to wear ridiculous hats and thick mustaches on camera, I think we get to have our fun too, TJ.
Yes, we do.
Yes. All right.
I just
reason
hope
why
the
we're
people that
kinda
are tuning in
memeing
right
here-
now also tune in tomorrow when Empanizado plays and watches and play Control Warrior, assuming it doesn't get banned against Frozen.
Maybe.
Oh, wow. The ultimate respect. Banning the warrior. Well, the reason why we're kind of like, joking around here and memeing a little bit is because this warrior, having played a lot of games of it, it felt like it really lacked consistent identity.
Yeah.
The coolest thing about this deck was I got to play Rattlegore, and when it's stuck, I got to damage it and copy it with
Yes.
Bloodsport Mercenary.
Yep.
Another thing that you can do is Athletic Studies, discount Kargath Prime, and in matchups where it's like burn heavy, like let's say it's Demon Hunter, right, which goes late into the game and they're trying to burst you. I've had situations where Athletic Studies discounted Kargath Prime from 8 to 7, and then you trade, and then you copy, and you get 20 armor in return. That's like the cool stuff at the top end. I didn't find any like I win openings that like Warrior sometimes used to have, right? Like Warrior with like the Serpent Egg and the Enrage and the Warmaul Challenger, they sometimes just like get so far ahead on early board tempo that you just kill them. Or they just had so much early game damage from bombs that they just like pressured you. Or they had like Bloodsword Mercenary Core Crown Elite combos that would end the game. This doesn't have any of that. Instead, it's like full removal, and I felt like it was mainly targeted at beating things like Zoo Warlock because it helped like deal with the early game board aggression and had some big life gain bursts at the end, as well as trying to beat other warriors. But looks like Firebat has neither in his lineup, which is why it's interesting to me.
I actually do like it against Tempo Mage, and I like it against most variations of Rogue.
Okay.
Which Firebat does have Tempo Mage, and he does have Rogue. The Druid matchup felt a little off because you
felt bad
have the
versus
same
Druid,
amount of
man.
removal as Bomb Warrior, but you're never pressuring them, so you're giving them a ton of time. So it's like exactly like Bomb Warrior, where you have to remove every last threat, but you don't have the clock of the bombs ticking them. So I feel like it's just worse than Bomb Warrior in that matchup. So it's all the faster stuff. And I did feel like in theory it should be good against Mage, but in practice it didn't work out as well as it could have. But we're talking about like the theory behind the deck, and there is things happening. Kargat Bladefist was put on the board. I do feel like it's not super necessary to protect, but it's nice to protect. Meaning like don't leave it vulnerable to devolving missiles, which Firebat plays natural copies in the deck. Against this matchup though, it's really hard because you're going to be waiting a long time to play the Kargath Bladefist if you're trying to wait for something to trade it into, because there's just never really anything that's big enough after you trade it into until Mountain Giants come down. And by that time, it's like too late. Like you should have played it. Karga Prime should be in your deck already, so it kind of had to take the risk in that scenario.
Yeah, I agree with that. I found out in practice against Mage in particular, this deck, like Mage just can generate too many threats, right? That's like the big issue. They hit one Power of Creation, and it's like, okay, well that cost you the Blaze Storm. They hit a Deep Freeze, it's like, well that cost you like, your Brawl or your Death. Like it just feels like there's just too much that they can do.
Yeah.
They puzzle box and they like play like puzzle box generates anything. Whether it's Eye of the Storm or like Nagrand Slant, it's like, wow, I can't really deal with that. And if I do, you got that card for free, so to speak. So I actually believe that Mage's perspective in this matchup is actually fatigue. Like they think about that, and like this Warrior deck still wants to draw cards because they use Battle Rage. Any Mage deck that took me to fatigue, I lost. I couldn't actually beat them. And I didn't feel like I had a consistent enough game plan to pressure enough to put them in a situation where they felt like they had to spend their resources more aggressively.
Oh, that's a fair point.
So we'll see.
Yeah, because you don't
The way
have
that
you're
I
drawing
won-
a lot of cards because of battle rages. You don't have too much protection from fatigue because all you
Right.
have is Kargath. Unless you're Bloodsworn Mercenary, your Kargaths. Oh, now you're primes.
I
Your
will
Blade
crush your
Fists.
delusions of
Oh,
grandeur.
the double
Baby
shuffle.
Kargath.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen very often.
Oh
we'll
my
say.
gosh, she finds a potion of illusion possibility. Like, if there's a player that
That's-
I can also pick out of the Hearthstone Grandmasters to be like a player that will identify fatigue situations very quickly, it'd be a player like Firebat. He is so good at recognizing when he can just like drain them of resources.
Yeah.
I mean, he was for a long time known as an aggro player back when he won the World Championship in 2014. And I think almost seemingly out of spite started playing fatigue deck because I think maybe aggro got a bad rap back then. People say like, oh, you know, aggro takes no skill, just go face, yada yada, which we all know by now it's not true. But back then, people actually believed that. And so I think Firebat started playing like control and fatigue decks to kind of prove them wrong for a long time, and he was winning tournaments with that.
So many choices.
And he's been kind of doing it ever since. He's been very good at it.
What's funny is, you know, players gave aggro a bad rap and said that, you know, aggro took no skill whatsoever, so they didn't practice it because they thought that everybody could be a good aggro player. And I would go so far to say as Firebat was the only good aggro player, like in competitive Hearthstone at that point. And players weren't good back then, in general. Even like the best, you would watch those games and be like, "Oh my gosh, that was terrible."
Yeah, thank God we don't see misplays in 2020, right, TJ?
I know, yeah. Hearthstone is perfect nowadays.
Solved.
It's solved, yeah. I mean, we basically just know who's going to win as soon as we see the deck selection.
Right. It's
Far from
it's actually kind of sad that some people actually believe that. But, no, not at all. We've actually seen a lot of agency where some players had the opportunity to make some pretty big differences with their plays, and then we've also seen some language hacker series. So you win some, you lose some.
Yep.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Firebat finds Mana Cyclone, so he has more ways to generate resources. So at this point of the matchup, it usually feels like you can just play Mana Giant, and there's actually not that much repercussion for doing so.
Yeah.
Because you just have so much stuff to do.
There's no
Look at it.
coerce.
There's just so much stuff. I kind of actually was thinking of Raz that turn, like Raz plus Hero Power the Kargath, but I think Firebat was looking for this devolving missiles. So Firebat, wow, he is very much thinking about fatigue. He's actually already planning it by trying to destroy Kargath Prime's chances of surviving.
But he's doing it by drawing cards?
Well, like by drawing cards and drawing devolving missiles, he actually increases the fatigue for Empanizado as well.
I suppose so.
Yeah. I
He's still
think it's
not
fairly
giving him an
clever.
opportunity to trade it in, too, which, you know, he's like purposefully keeping it around and not able to be killed.
Right.
To try and find that.
Maybe.
It's not only
Okay,
just delaying
maybe-
fatigue, it's also doing what you said, which you can double it up with Bloodsworn Mercenary if you played Athletic Studies. And also that armor
Right.
gain is ridiculously powerful against a deck that at some point are going to likely try and burn you out of the game. So,
Yeah. I think fatigue might be the wrong terminology that I'm using here. Maybe the term is exhausting, right? He's exhausting his resources and then
Okay,
trying
I see.
to, be more like just have too much stuff for him to answer.
yeah.
Because if you trade resource for resource, Warrior gets wrecked. But because they played the battle rate, they are going to draw cards, which is why fatigue often ends up coming up, where Warrior is decked out and Mage still has 5 cards and yet has just as many cards, if not more. So going for Athletic Studies, finds.
Oh, okay.
Faceless
Faceless Corruptor.
I mean, that doesn't that helps. Definitely helps.
Prime right away. Essentially right away. Like 2 turns later.
Yeah. Full hand, a little bit too many cards actually. Oh boy. Here we go.
all right.
I mean, if he draws card.
Oh my
wow!
God.
All right.
It happens
Just cut straight
too
to the
many
chase.
times.
Okay. Breath. Backpack.
Oh,
Oh no! Solarian Prime is indeed a demon. And he plays the Librum, playing a bunch of stuff. Actually, he just gave a Librum to his opponent. And he also resurrected Solarian Prime.
He's also going to force an overdraw from Empanizado. Maybe even multiple overdraws if he kills this Blood Mage Thanos. That started off poorly and then went super well towards the end.
Yeah, they had us in the first half. I
That's pretty
think
insane.
Firebat doesn't do anything here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, TJ, I said this was a weird matchup, and I think it's living up to that billing. It is getting very strange up in here. I think Empanizado is incentivized to actually face his Corruptor, his Blood
So
Mage
many
Thanos.
choices.
Yeah.
Librum of Wisdom.
I'll take that.
Oh no, he gives it back!
Is that bad? Oh yeah. Yeah. It's he can kill it right away. Just
Yeah.
cards in hand.
But like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. 'Cause funny though. Very funny.
yeah.
Thanos survived.
All right.
Firebat looks very sad about that outcome.
We're perplexed. I'm actually unsure what that facial expression is.
My hand is too full.
Oh, that's a big
Conjurer's
one
Calling
actually.
Burned. It doesn't matter. Look at his one potion of
nothing
illusion.
matters anymore.
It really kind of doesn't. I mean, in the fact that one potion of illusion already gives him ridiculous value.
Yeah, that's true.
Octo. Oh.
Oh no! No!
Oh my gosh.
And you think he's thinking about the fatigue plan now? I mean, he can potion of illusion it.
What? Oh no.
That's disastrous.
That is really, really, really bad.
That is terrible.
Oh no.
Firebat.
Oh no.
Time runs out on me.
Not really much to say. Jeez. Okay. So Empanizado just has to shield slam that Octosari. And now he can actually play what the deck is labeled.
Yeah.
So now the issue is, so people are going to be like, well, why does Firebat lose from this position if they're not familiar with Octosari? Octosari draws 8 cards when it dies, and Firebat only has hand in his space for 2 cards, but more importantly, he will be 7 cards down, fatigue, and Empanizado can just simply play control style, and it's up to Firebat to generate enough threats. Firebat's not out of this just yet, by the way. It's just that it's unlikely to win from this position.
My hand is too
Firebat
full.
has a ton of threats and resource generation still. Not to mention he still has Puzzle Box. So while this stings really bad, oh, he concedes. All right. Well,
Yeah, I liked where your speech was going. There was still a very small chance.
it was at best in the single digits. Very likely to be like sub 1% chance.
Yeah, I would say
But
like
there's a
4%
chance.
at best.
And Firebat found the line that protects his mental health the best. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's tough times right now in 2020, and you got to protect your mental health sometimes above everything else. And you know what? Firebat says, you know what? I want to start streaming immediately.
Yeah.
And you can do so.
Wow. That's a pretty brutal series overall. Empanizado, had the interesting lineup. I feel like if that Octasari doesn't come out from that Conjurer's Calling, that game is a lot different. Maybe the series is a lot different. Because it did feel like he had a ton of value to be able to go toe-to-toe in the late game. Wasn't too far behind in fatigue. But, sometimes Conjurer's Calling can come back to bite you.
Very much so. And so, and now, TJ, we'll be able to say, should we really be doing things like Conjurer's Calling? Because you might get this scenario. You talk about Doomsayer. There was a time period where I believe players were talking about how they didn't want to Conjurer's Calling 8-drops because of Octasari. There was actually discussion about that, especially during the Luna's Pocket Galaxy metagame. So this is that's definitely some food for thought moving forward. Very, very, very unlucky for Firebat, but definitely a note for any player moving forward. That is certainly a possibility, and you got to account for that.
Yeah. It's hard to, those kind of situations where you play around Octasari or when you're, far enough ahead to where the only way you lose is Octasari, but there was more ways he loses there, and he needs to pressure, so you can't blame him for it. But it does hurt to go out that way, and saving himself that mental fatigue of trying to find a sub 1% win condition in a game that's almost certainly lost against a Control Warrior who's not even going to kill you fast. They're just going to wait for you to die yourself, which is a brutal way. Brutal way to go out,
Wow. There are some high highs and low lows certainly for this weekend for several of our players. But that brings us to our last